Hello and welcome. Today we have Marcus Long with us, who is going to share his inspiring journey to financial freedom through real estate investing. Marcus is a husband, father, and recently retired naval officer who is passionate about helping others and building a legacy of generational wealth and financial freedom for his family. Please help me welcome Marcus to the show.
Thanks, Tracy. Appreciate you having me and look forward to sharing with your audience.
Awesome. We're really excited to have you here today. To start things off, could you tell our listeners a little bit about how you got involved in real estate investing?
Yeah, so this story about my initial entry into real estate goes all the way back to 2004. Shortly after I had enlisted in the military, a couple years later, I got selected for a commissioning program, and when I went back to college, I bought a 3-bed, 2-bath condo that I lived in, and ended up house hacking it before I knew what house hacking was at the time. When I graduated, I moved away and kept that condo as a rental, which I still own today. And I didn't, having someone live with me while I was there, paying part of the mortgage, and then having it as a rental after I left, the wheels kind of started ticking a little bit about the power of real estate, both from cash flow and the pay down, the equity growth and stuff from the pay down of the loan, and tax benefits and other things. And so over a number of years, not super intentional early on, but I started acquiring a few single family homes, and almost 20 years later, here I am today.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for your service and sharing a little bit more about your background and letting us get to know you a little bit more.
Thanks for yours as well.
Thank you. Passive investing is something that a lot of us are really curious about. People know that it's out there, but they don't really know how to go about doing it. Could you explain a little bit about what passive investing is to you and some of the differences between passive and active real estate investing?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the great things about real estate investing in general is there is a broad spectrum, from passive to very active investing. And I think we have to look at, when we are choosing what we want to invest or how we want to invest, like look at our goals, both financially and like from our family and things like that. And so it's like, as we look at things like, if we're looking at flipping homes and stuff, it's very, very active, intense doing it. When we're looking at like rental properties and stuff, that can be a little bit of a spectrum. There, you might manage it yourself, a little bit still kind of active. You're involved in some day-to-day things, maybe a little bit more passive if you have a property manager or something. And then you get to like things like private lending or even passively investing in LP partner and multifamily syndications where, there's the action there, or the activity is really some education so that you're making sound investments. But once you invest, you're hands off day to day. And a lot of the big part is picking partners or a team that you trust with the day-to-day operations that are actually doing the active investing.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more from your personal experience, some of the passive investments that you've done and why you liked them?
Absolutely. So, early on, I kind of mentioned my first investment back in 2004 and mentioned doing single family for a number of years. And so really I was actively investing for the better part of a decade, close to, more than a decade, about 15 years. And when I moved to England in 2019, up to that point, it was mostly single family rentals. Some we were managing ourselves, some we had property managers. And when we moved to England with the military, I still had my full-time military job, and I expected that my family was going to be doing a lot of traveling. Of course, this was pre-COVID,
Sure.
Some plans changed. But that's how I kind of made my first steps into some of my passive investments.
Okay.
And I made, two types that I kind of already mentioned. I had some capital available from, a personal residence that we had sold. And so I did some shorter term private lending,
Okay.
6 to 12 month notes and stuff. And then I also did invest in 3 multifamily properties as a limited partner.
Okay.
And a lot of the reasons I did that, like I said, like I was still working full time and intended to travel. I was overseas, and I thought like, hey, this was a good time to be a little bit more hands off. And my network of real estate investors was expanding, and I had access to some of these opportunities to invest with people that I trusted and so that I could go do the things, work or go do the things that I enjoyed at that point in time. So that's kind of how I took my first step into passive investments and some of the ones I invested in.
Okay, awesome. Can you go a little bit more into detail on two things? One, you mentioned being a limited partner. Could you talk a little bit more about what is the difference between a limited partner and a general partner when you're talking about syndication? And then how did you actually find your first deals that you did?
Absolutely. So for the first part, the difference in general partner and limited partner is the general partners are still very active investors, right? Mm-hmm. The general partners are day to day. They are out looking, researching the markets, what's the best markets to be investing in. They are developing relationships with sellers or brokers. They are underwriting opportunities that are sent to them to determine, like, hey, is this financially feasible for our team and for our passive investors? Mm-hmm. They are the ones that are working with lenders to get the financing and pulling together the passive investors to fund the deal. And then once the deal is closed, they are managing the asset. So we often have like an on-site property management third party or in-house property management team, but they are really the asset managers who are general partners are working with the property managers to execute the business plan that was laid out to the investors. So that's for like the general partners.
Got it.
And the limited partners, the passive investors, they are really, you want to get educated, to understand, to a basic level and stuff like what these investments are that you're investing in. You want to build a relationship with the general partners, and ask them questions, like do your due diligence. You're really doing due diligence mm-hmm. more on the team and the partners you're investing with, more so than the deal. You're trusting that team has done a lot of that due diligence and research on the market and the deal and things like that. And so that's really where the effort for the passive investor happens. And then once they choose a team and a deal that they want to invest in, once they sign that and send their money, they are pretty hands-off day to day. So they essentially, when you invest as a passive investor, you are essentially buying a part of a business, an LLC, right? And
right.
A small fraction of the business that's going to own that real estate. Mm-hmm. And so you're hands off, and you kind of you get your K1 at the end of the year for tax perspective as being a part owner in that business. But you can still work your full-time job. You can travel as you want. You can pursue other passions without having to worry about how many units are not occupied this week or month and stuff like that. That's for the general partners to take care of.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you for providing those details about the process. You talked about how passive investing implies like less hands-on involvement, but obviously that there's some due diligence and the importance of like managing risk as a limited partner by getting to know the folks that you're investing with. So how did you initially find the people that you did your first deal with?
Yeah, so I found my teams I did my first deal with primarily through some masterminds that I was in, real estate masterminds, and then also a lot of networking as well. So a couple of the partners that I work closely with on some of my first deals, as well as still today, I was in small accountability groups. We met weekly, and so we spent a lot of time together, week in and week out. And then a couple of the other partners were not necessarily members of that mastermind, but met through a lot of networking, like Zoom networking or in-person, meetups and things like that. And you can kind of see like who is showing up week after week after week, and that dedication and stuff. And so, depending on, masterminds are a great place to meet them because we do spend a lot of time together, and you do get to get to know people through there. There's a lot of other, not being in one, there's a lot of other opportunities, but you just want to, you get to know people a lot better. So there are other opportunities, whether it's meetups or Zoom or in person and stuff. But you want to spend the time to understand, like get to know that person, like get to know their family, their background. How do they communicate? How do they handle situations when things don't go so well? And you want to know some of that stuff before you are like in the moment and things are happening.
Got it. Definitely make sure that it's somebody that you that you know well, that you can trust, that you have some sort of established relationship with. You don't want to just like look up some random team off the internet and be like, oh, I'm going to give them,
Yeah, just
take
like we
my
were
money.
saying, much like the LPs are doing their due diligence on the general partners they want to invest in, we as general partners should be doing the same type of due diligence and understanding the other general partners that we are going to spend time with and invest in that asset.
Right. Very important. Would you be able to share with us maybe a specific example of how you have been able to accelerate your own pursuit of financial freedom using passive real estate investing?
Yeah, so I think specifically, kind of going back, when I first moved to England, that's really when I got into the passive investing. And I think that, as I had that like larger network of real estate investors and had those like opportunities, and that's how there are opportunities, right? You kind of have to like expand your network. There's likely someone, for your audience, whoever's listening, they're like you, for example, there's someone in their network that has these opportunities available. So kind of like letting people know what you're looking for and asking. And I was able to leverage that network to have some of these opportunities, both short-term and longer-term multifamily. And the cool part about it was I was in a stage or a phase in my life where I wanted for my family to be able to travel, or maybe it's, you really are passionate about your W-2 or something like that, and you really want to focus on that. But I was able to, still invest in these opportunities. I was able to kind of expand the strategies. If you have like a lot of money in the stock market and you want to like diversify things and move it into different asset classes. And I think, doing that gave me access to both some short-term opportunities, the long-term opportunities, and continue to, grow my wealth even when I was a little bit more hands-off in those investments. And ultimately, that gave me access to some of the partners and the team members that I became active again. But that's really what I'm passionate about. Like now, as you know, a large part of my passive investors today are still military, right? A large part of my network, almost 75% of my investors are military. And so like I know like many of them are still active, many are still living overseas, Japan, Germany, England, like they're wanting to travel and things like that, right? They don't necessarily have the time to spend that it requires to like research all these markets and build the relationships with brokers and all that kind of stuff. But they want exposure to the asset class, right? So that's what's really rewarding for me now, is to be able to provide these opportunities to them.
I love that. I love that. So as we wrap things up, what advice would you give to our listeners who are interested in getting involved with passive real estate investing, but maybe they don't know where to start? Is there like a good sort of first step, something that they can do to start, taking action and moving things forward to progress towards positioning themselves for a passive investment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing is like I spent, over a decade actively investing in single family before I really knew what syndications were and knowing these passive opportunities and things, right? And so I also know that a lot of my peers probably know, when we think of real estate, we think of like, single family rental. A lot of times it's natural for a lot of us. And so if someone's listening today to this, like, and they're like, oh, that sounds interesting, I don't really know anything about it. Number one, like reach out to someone like yourself that can provide some additional steps or, bits of education as they go along. And I mean, that's what I find very rewarding myself as a general partner, is in working with my network, is like I love the education piece, right? And so I would encourage them to reach out to someone like yourself that is willing to, spend some time with them. It doesn't all happen in like 30 minutes or an hour. It's a journey.
It's an ongoing
to go
conversation.
On, right? So that's one thing, is to reach out and let people know like, hey, I'm interested, and that's non-committal, right? Like just because you're interested in learning about something doesn't mean you're investing next month, right? Like it might be whatever time is right for them in their journey, but getting started educating and understand what the benefits are and what aspects of the passive investing could benefit them at different points in their journey is really important. And the other thing I would say is, and I've shared this with you, there's a great book called The Hands-Off Investor that was written with the passive investor in mind, right? And so it's pretty detailed about a lot of different aspects of it. And so whether you read it or listen to it audio or something like that, like that's a good educational resource that someone can use as well, just to kind of learn more about the process, and maybe even think of some other questions that they could like ask you whenever they set up a time to call and chat with you.
Yeah, that's great. I think, you really keyed in on that piece of like, it's really important for them to sort of start thinking about on their own, like, what is their why? What are they trying to accomplish with these investments, and sort of what are they looking for? And then as we have that conversation, we can kind of flesh out, like, is syndication the right opportunity? Or maybe doing private lending for somebody who's doing flips, or, whatever it is, but helping them find the right type of investment that's going to meet their goals.
Yeah. And even in like within syndications and stuff, there's different business plans, whether that is, there's different asset classes like storage units or multifamily or other things, but different business plans, whether something is stabilized, whether there's some value add rehab that's going to happen, whether it's a new development. Even each of those has different aspects of, cash flow or growth or tax benefits.
Absolutely.
And so starting to learn and understand the different options and like which ones might align with their family and financial goals.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Well, we really appreciate you sharing your valuable insights with us and sharing some of your experience. If the guests that are listening today wanted to connect with you and kind of continue to follow your journey and see what you're up to, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, they can always check out alonglegacy.com. alonglegacy.com. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. If anyone wants to set up a call, there's a calendar on there. There's my email, social media. I share new things on there to kind of follow my journey. I'm also big on taking my kids along in the journey. So if you want to share financial education stuff with your children and stuff as well, they can get in touch with me there.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you again for spending your time with us today. We'll link your website in the show notes as well to make sure people can find that. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into this episode and being a part of this community. If you found this episode valuable, please remember to subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, remember that your path to financial freedom and the life of your dreams might be closer than you think. Take the first step and explore your possibilities. Stay tuned for more insightful episodes. And again, thank you for listening.